Yes, as I was saying, it's the company's English expert is quite a thorny topic because a lot of companies, particularly when it's a family company, they have somebody in the family whose English is fantastic and they are responsible for all the English in that company. And you have to navigate your way around these people because you can't get rid of them because they're part of the family. But their English is not usually as good as they think it is or as good as their family thinks it is. And that can be really problematic for the company and for any expat working for that company.
So this is an area of conflict.
It is. And you have to be very diplomatic. And it's one of those things where you just go, what can I do? Just have to ride with the situation.
So can you give us an example of a situation where that would sort of occur? So I'm working in a company. I'm obviously outside of an English-speaking country. So a lot of the people around me have English as a second language or no English. And then the family who owns it, they have somebody who's a very, very good English speaker according to them, maybe not so much according to me. And where would the conflicts kind of come about? Because I know in a lot of the things we're talking about, it's I say something and it's interpreted wrong, or it's taken the wrong way, or they just actually don't understand what the words are that I said. But this seems to be quite a bit different than that.
Yes. Well, we're both very big fans of KISS, keep it short and simple, keep it simple, stupid. And often in other non-English cultures, longer is better or longer is considered better. And it comes to the point where they just take something in their language and they just dump it into English, for example, as a presentation. And you are looking at the presentation and saying, well, I have no idea what this is about. I need to prune this. I need to edit it. So I had a student once. He was a manager and he had to do a presentation. So I worked with him. I prepared a very good presentation with him. It was, it had all the, let's say, the keep it simple rules, 1.1 slide, not much text, pictures, and not too long. So he was happy with it. We worked on it. He gave a really good presentation. He went to the company, gave the presentation, and what happened? His boss hated the presentation. Why? Because the boss said that the English was too simple. Of course it's simple. We want to communicate with people. And there were not enough slides, because if you want to do a real presentation that shows that you've studied your topic and shows that you're an expert, then if you don't have 50 or 55 or 100 slides, then obviously you're lazy or you're not an expert. So this is a cultural thing where a presentation, for example, should be long, should use big words. And the owner's son, who had obviously much better English than me, basically went through the presentation and improved it by, I guess, looking in a dictionary and putting in as many long words as possible that he could find. And after that, the presentation was horrible. It was a mess. It was very boring. And I just disowned it because I said, I'm sorry, this is a terrible presentation. It was fine before. Maybe you disagree with some of the points. Okay, I'll change a few words here or a few pictures here. But what you've done is just made this into another typical long, boring death by PowerPoint.
And we all just love going through that experience, don't we?
Yeah, but that's a big fight. It's the difference between, let's say, a presentation in a country like Canada or the UK and the presentation in a country where they are used to a very long and academic and, let's say, showing off kind of presentation. The idea is to show off, not to actually get your point across.
Right. And I've experienced that on the street, because as you were talking, I was thinking of times that I am going into a shop and I got like 2 packages I want to buy, and there's 3 people in front of me, and there's a lady who's got 5 packages, and it takes like 20 minutes for her to get through the checkout. And they're talking and talking and talking. And it's like, of course, you see, in Canada, you go into a grocery store, you get your groceries, you get out. Here, obvious, or in this situation and in this place, it's a social event. So I'm sure they were talking, how are your children? How's this? Is the tomato ripe enough? I mean, I have no idea, not having spoken the language, but I was going, there's no way that they couldn't have said that in a quarter of the word or a tenth of the number of words or whatever. And I'm realizing now it's like, well, no, they were like friends having a long conversation, and everybody just stood there and waited for them to talk about whatever it was they were talking about. And that made me realize we have, cultural differences when it comes to shopping.
But that's good in some ways, because if you think about it, that's something that we've lost. This let's say this time or the ability to just pass the time of day with somebody, have a chat. And for example, I think, is it Apple? Not Apple. I think, yes, Apple or Amazon or somebody. They started new stores now where you just use your Apple Pay. You don't even need cashiers. You just pick something up and you walk through the door. And as you walk through the door, it automatically scans the product and scans your Apple phone. And you don't even have to speak to anybody. You can just go in there, shop, leave, and not utter a single word to anybody. And again, I think maybe we're going too far that way.
Yes.
I actually enjoy talking to cashiers and just passing the time of day sometimes.
That's right. And it's a far more intimate, far more friendly, far more being the way life should be than the Apple situation that you just described, for sure. But I took, we talk about awareness. I mean, there I was going like, how come these guys are talking for so long? And in my mind, they're talking about the milk or the bread or the price or something, right? And they could have been, but more likely they were just visiting, and it was okay, because that's, there are markets, and if you visit the person, they like each other, the person's going to come back more and more. Whereas in the Canadian culture, there's a big box store, just go get what you want and get out as fast as you can. And it's a totally different situation. And I agree with you. We've lost that human touch.
So I think, again, there are two sides of going native, so I think it's like, yes, maybe try to keep your English okay, but at the same time, maybe just pick up a few of the more human aspects of the local culture, because I think there's a lot that we can learn still from other people. And it's important, I think, to bear that in mind and to actually actively seek to add that to your life. And it's something we'll talk about in the solutions later.
Yeah. And that brings us kind of around back to the talk about arrogance that we had earlier as well, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like, it's the way we are is not necessarily the best way to be. Let's grow together.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So that brings us to the end of this lecture, and we're going to, and actually almost to the end of this section. So congratulations. If you have any questions, make sure that you click on the Q&A button below or comments and let us know what you think. Of course, you can also send us direct mail through the system here as well. And we're going to see you in the summary next.